Let's see if I remember to do these intros, man. It's been a while. Fuck. All right, guys. What's going on? We're here. We're live. Brand new Poker Live podcast. Technically, it's been a long break, long hiatus. I've taken off about 6 months. I've been doing this Doug Polk First Day in the Grinder Challenge these past 2.5 months, which I'm sure a lot of you guys have tuned in for. But we're back on the podcast grind. And listen, I normally have poker people on my show, but a few times I've reached out to people that I've liked outside of poker. We had Devin Larrett, one of the top arm wrestlers, on before. I found my favorite TED Talk guy, Ivan Joseph. He talked about self-confidence. I love that fucking guy. And, during this maybe like last year, I started learning more about the financial world. I started learning more about the Federal Reserve, studying the history of money. And then on Twitter, I got tagged in a tweet. It was a guy using bang bang. And people were like, oh, he's using your line, Poppy. You say bang bang all the time. I was like, well, one, I don't have like a trademark on bang bang. And two, I was like, all right, well, who's saying bang bang? So I find this guy right here, Anthony Pompliano, a.k.a. Pomp, right? I find his timeline, and guy's just getting after it super hard. He's firing up people. He's the biggest Bitcoin advocate I've ever seen in my life. He's the ultimate fucking hype man for Bitcoin. So I started following him, listening to his podcast, puts out a YouTube video talking about Bitcoin, and finally it clicks for me a little bit, and I'm like, oh my God, this guy makes so much sense talking about Bitcoin, just for me as in terms of never really studying the industry or the genre or anything like that. And I've been listening to a lot of his podcasts, really enjoy the guests he has on. Very wide variety. The guy does a lot of different things, man. Investor, content creator, multiple different podcasts, the newsletter. You just started a crypto jobs kind of fund. The guy is involved in pretty much, I don't know how the fuck guys he keeps track of the projects, but I'm excited to have him on. I want to learn more about him. I want you guys to meet him as well, too. He's got a YouTube channel up there. The link's in the description if you want to check it out. We got the Pomp, a.k.a. Anthony Pompliano. What's happening, brother? Welcome officially to the podcast. Thank you very much for joining me, man.
Listen, I got a lot of energy, but you may be the only person in the world that's got more energy than me, so I appreciate it.
It's actually, I asked my buddy, I said, hey, he's a lot more into the crypto world, and I said, do you know much about Pomp? And he's like, well, the guy works really hard. He's a hardcore grinder, and he's got a lot of energy, got a lot of hype. He's kind of like you of Bitcoin for you of poker. I was like, well, that's perfect. So we're gonna get along pretty well. So I guess when I think about it, right, how would you describe yourself to people out there? Because you have the big Twitter following, you got over 500,000 followers on Twitter. You got the newsletter that's growing and growing every single day. You're putting those out. I think you put them out daily or 5 days a week.
5 days a week.
5 days a week. You got the other podcast with the kid from TikTok. You got what's it called?
Bryce Hall.
What's it called?
Capital University. Bryce Hall.
Capital University. We've listened to a few of those episodes. Really like a lot of those episodes as well too. So you also have the investing that you do as well. You got the solo investing fund. And you're also a partner in a venture capital firm as well too.
Correct.
So, and you got your family on Twitter. You got your wife on Twitter. You got your brother on Twitter. Shout out to Joe. That guy's always putting up some great threads. How the hell? What do you describe yourself as exactly when people say like, what's your deal? What's your story, kind of thing?
Depends who I'm talking to. If I'm talking to somebody who I respect and I want to be honest, I say I fuck around on the internet. If I'm talking to somebody who is a little bit more serious, I just investing. Like it all revolves around the investing. All the other stuff is more so either fun or just things that kind of I'm intellectually curious about. But the main focus is investing.
Yeah, it makes sense, right? It seems like all these different asset classes are popping up right now on the internet, and a lot of my buddies are into the Top Shot right now, and a lot of people are into altcoins, and obviously a lot of people are into Bitcoin, and it kind of seems like you're one of those like thought leaders in the Bitcoin world on social media and on the podcast app. What's sort of your relationship like with the Bitcoin community and kind of being in the position that you're in as this very, very optimistic believer in sort of what you're talking about with the Bitcoin?
Yeah, look, I always tell people I don't have a lot of good ideas, but the very few ideas that I do have, if I believe in them, I've got deep conviction. Mm-hmm. And frankly, I have no idea how all this happened. I basically just kept saying what I believed. And at one point it was super contrarian, kind of people were like, you believe what? Now all of a sudden I think people are like, oh, okay, yeah, this is probably going to happen. And so it's just the natural, kind of, that's how markets work, right? During bear markets, people are very, very bearish, obviously, and they think that anyone who's optimistic are crazy. And now that we're in more of kind of a bullish market, somehow I'm like the most conservative guy in the room, right? People are coming out with all kinds of crazy stuff. So I just try to be somewhat even keeled in the optimism, but I just have an opinion as to where, all this is going, what's going to happen. And I've stayed pretty convicted on it for a number of years now. And I think that people just generally appreciate somebody who, regardless of what's happening, kind of sticks to what they believe.
Yeah, I love the community and kind of following them on Twitter because they're always, it's like you're all playing the game together, sort of thing, right? It's like when it rises, everyone's like, yes, let's go. When it falls, it's like, stay calm, you know what I'm saying? It's very supportive community, and especially coming from my world, which is poker. Not quite as supportive. There's a lot of egos, a lot of battling, a lot of people saying you suck, you're this, you're that, which I'm sure happens in the investing world specifically. So when it comes to the investing side of you and the venture capital side of you and the solo investor side of you, is there like a competitive element to that as well with other investors in terms of like, I'm a better investor than you, or what's that dynamic like in your world?
Yeah, I think that there's kind of a complex relationship, right? Especially in early stage venture capital, a lot of times you want to play nice with everyone. You want to have really good investors at the table alongside you because it actually gives the company a better chance of being successful. But at the same time, it's a competitive thing, right? Everyone wants to win the best deals, or everyone wants to have the best returns. And so I think that naturally competitive people are drawn to it. But I think there's kind of a mutual respect as well, right? That there's a number of investors that I co-invest with quite often. And the reason why I continue to co-invest with them is because I think they're smart. I think they have kind of, a lot of skill sets and experience and network that can be valuable to a founder. And so what you basically want to do is you want to find like-minded individuals that you enjoy working with, and you can kind of all help each other. But, if you go and you grab a beer with each other, like for sure, it's competitive and everyone wants to talk about who had the biggest exit or who made the most money on an investment. I think that's just naturally what happens for investors, traders. I'm sure poker players are the same. And so you kind of, when you're on the field, you have a mutual respect, but in the back of everyone's head, everyone's trying to win. And so I think that makes it fun as well.
Yeah, it's your pinned tweet's really fascinating to me because kind of my approach to what I do has always been really solo based with poker. It's like me, a battle against my mindset. Like, can I execute my strategy consistently, repetitively over a long period of time? And if I do that, most likely I'm going to come out and I'm going to be a winner at the game. But business, I've noticed, doesn't quite work that way, where it's a lot more about partnerships, building a team, finding people to manage the parts of the business that you're weak in. And you have on your Twitter, you have pinned about just don't work with assholes, right? Like work with people you like and do business with people you like. I guess for you have so much opportunity now because, I don't know if people really understand, like the network you have that I've just observed on your podcast is pretty insane because you get people from finance world, investing world, startup world, like old money, new money, fucking crypto people. You kind of find the whole entire range of guests. You know what I'm saying? Like you're kind of all, and I recognize that as just like, a lot of people. So when you're weighing opportunity, because you're getting things thrown at you constant, I can't even imagine it, right? I get an opportunity where I'm at with things. I can't imagine you're saying, I'm an investor. I'm looking to, I'm looking to fund billion-dollar companies out there. How do you sort of wade through all that opportunity for yourself?
Yeah, I separate a lot of it into kind of three separate buckets, right? There are things that are kind of business building. So this is something where somebody comes to me with an idea. They say, hey, look, you've got a big audience. You've got a unique perspective. You've got capital. I want to be your partner and let's go start a business together. And that is usually not a venture-backed type business. That's more of like a cash flow type business. The job board was a great example of that where, we're building something from scratch. Yes, we have an advantage because of kind of my brand, my reputation, my audience, but also we've got to go build a business, right? Because we've got a product together and launched it and watched the races. The other types of opportunity will be in more of the investment area. And so on the investing side, I'm looking to fund other people who have already started a business who are going to go build a big business and would like to own a minority position and see them be successful so that I get a return on my capital. But then also there's kind of a third bucket, which is in some crazy way because of all the content stuff. Now all of a sudden I got this massive audience. People want to do like advertising deals. They want to do, all sorts of licensing and all that. And so that's probably the area where I've been the most uncomfortable just because I've got the least amount of experience. But once you kind of see behind the curtain as to how some of that stuff comes together, you're like, man, there's a crazy world going on. And so I think that I just try to separate it into those three buckets. I definitely optimize the most for putting capital into somebody else's business. Really, that is kind of the highest leverage thing I can do, right? I spend the least amount of time, but I have the kind of most upside from a financial return perspective. The second bucket is kind of building things that I own. So, things like the job board that can be very cash flow heavy. I own a majority stake. I have control. I get to make decisions and really make sure the right people are running that. And then the third one is kind of all of the more what I'll call brand deal or advertising type opportunities. They can be lucrative from a cash flow perspective, kind of in the short term. But what you're essentially doing is you're renting out your audience, you're renting out your time, your channels, your platforms to help build somebody else's brand, right? And so kind of short-term optimization, but you're giving up that long-term benefit. And so you got to find the balance because ultimately you really want to be doing that for the things that you own, not doing it for somebody else.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense what you're saying right there. And I guess the challenge of launching and you talk about partnering versus having your own products or having your own services or having the own job board or the discussion or the forum or the course or the event or anything like that, kind of building that takes time and that takes energy. But then once you build it, it can be something that potentially other people just run for you. And I think about partnerships as in, I'm looking right now in terms of who I can partner with in my own world. And there's mainly only a few big operators who have budgets and have this sort of resources to help me improve my own content and me also add value to them add value to me. So that's sort of what I'm looking for in my world right now. But the idea of owning, right, owning the product, owning the service, having that audience, having those people that write with a job board, I mean, that's an amazing idea for the crypto jobs. You not only get to help people out, because I know a lot of people who are looking for jobs in crypto right now who ask me if they can connect me with, if I can connect them with somebody, and I say, I'm not sure where to send you. So where did the inspiration for the crypto job board come from for yourself? Because I'm sure you have a lot of people ask you, how the hell do I get into this industry? I believe in it. I want to help. I want to work in it.
Yeah, I'm again, there's so many different opportunities to pursue. So I'm actually pretty selective of when I kind of choose to do something. I was joking with the kid Colton who's helping me with it, and I said, when I shoot, I don't miss. Right? It was kind of the mentality that I wanted to have, and so for that, it was basically just a win-win for everyone. Right? So there's people looking for jobs. Okay, there's tons of people who are looking to fill open roles that are great companies that are kind of industry-leading opportunities. And then for somebody like me, by bringing those two parties together and creating a marketplace, I can extract economic value while also kind of doing well by doing good. And so it was, when you kind of think through the structure of the product, it was just a no-brainer. And then I had just seen so much, talking with so many founders, they just said, look, we can't fill the roles. We're looking for people. Then obviously, kind of every day, people DMing me and all this stuff saying I'm looking for a job. And so I frankly kind of launched it with low expectations. I knew we wanted to make sure we nailed the launch. We wanted to have the right launch partners. We wanted to have the media coverage, all that. But I didn't know how it would go. And already I think there's 70 or 80 companies on there. There's maybe 1,000 people, give or take, that have already kind of filled out resumes on the platform. So companies are already kind of feedback in just the first week saying, look, we're getting tracked, right? We're getting people to look at these open roles. And I think that's ultimately what kind of makes it valuable to folks. So we'll keep working on it and hopefully we can keep improving it. And it eventually becomes kind of the de facto standard for the industry.
Yeah, I feel like with Bitcoin, I sort of thought about this so much because I look at my own market and kind of analyze how we ended up here. And I look at Bitcoin and it seems like with Bitcoin cryptocurrency, it's in the very, very early stages of being established. And you're sort of at the forefront of the voices in that community. And now you're helping to fill jobs. You're going to connect people together and they're going to remember that from you. And it feels like that's something that down the road, do you have any more aspirations in terms of events or products or ideas that you could do in terms of maybe your own exchange or anything like that, or your own cryptocurrency coin potentially too?
Definitely won't do my own coin. That's one that is definitely out of the question. Look, I've thought about a whole bunch of different stuff. One of the things that I constantly go back to is I want to do things that are not competitive with companies that I invest in. So that's kind of one consideration. The other is just, how big can it be, right? There's all kinds of things that I could do on a small scale that probably could make money. But as I've gotten older and kind of been in a position where I've got more opportunities, you start to really value your time more, right? And so time is kind of a proxy for, can I find the right people to work with me on something so that it's less my time and it's more of just me giving direction and advice. But then also on top of that, we need to have some element of, can this do $1 million a year? That's kind of my minimum threshold now, is if we're going to take a stab at something. It doesn't guarantee we're going to do that, but is that kind of top line revenue? Can we get it to $1 million in 12 months? And then, how many people is it going to take? How profitable will it be? And you kind of just start to make judgment calls, right? You're kind of operating with imperfect information, but you do some back of the napkin math and kind of identify, okay, this opportunity is likely to be more profitable and more effective use of time than some other opportunities. And so that's kind of how I think about it.
So how do you think about the idea of what, I guess, a successful business is? Because it sounds like you think about, okay, a successful business is something that does this amount of profit or this amount of revenue. So how do you come to decide I want to be making millions of dollars, or how does that sort of work? Because it seems like you're in the position where you can really choose what you want to do, and you don't necessarily have to do something that is a business or does make money.
Yeah. So first, I'm a really, really big believer in kind of like revenue per employee. And what that basically means is just like, can I run a business that gets to, my first goal is always 100K per employee, then it's 500K, and then it's $1 million, right? And if I can get to $1 million per employee in revenue, that's a pretty big business, right? I mean, there's not very many businesses that can get to that point. And so it's not just about the top line revenue number. It's also about how efficient can you be, right? Can you build a business with a small team, be, kind of more the Navy SEALs than the big army, if you will. And so that's a big consideration. In terms of like trying to optimize for this stuff, the other thing that I really enjoy doing, and I've done on a number of occasions, is I like finding young people who are really hungry, who are really scrappy, who kind of have shown a propensity for action, who basically are just looking for a shot, right? And I used to be one of those kids, and then I got a shot, and it happened to get an opportunity to go work out at Facebook, and kind of the rest was history from there. And so when you think of it from that perspective, what I try to do is I try to make sure that everyone always has upside as well in these environments. And so you can imagine if you're, somebody under the age of 30 years old, you're kind of looking for an opportunity, you get presented with somebody who's got a big brand, who's got a big audience, who can help kind of accelerate a product or service. And if you do the work, you're going to get a percentage of all of that revenue or that upside. It's a pretty attractive thing. And so again, going back to kind of the win-win, one, I'm driving more revenue. Two, I'm giving somebody that opportunity, helping them build a career, a skill set, experience, kind of a resume. And then lastly is usually we're only building things that I think will be really valuable to somebody, right? Kind of the end user. That's the only way that you can really drive the revenue. And so, no perfect formula. It's more art than science, but so far so good.
Yeah, a very interesting way to put it. I mean, basically, you're talking about finding talent, whether it's talent in terms of people you want to work with as a content creator, or people that are going to be running your business, or people that are going to be doing your graphic design, or sort of whatever it is. So you're sort of optimizing for the talent discovery process, whether that's they reach out to you or you potentially find someone you want to work with and reach out to them. So yeah, I think that makes a lot
I haven't told this story yet, but I think he'll be fine me telling it. So the kid Colton, who's helping me with the job board, you want to know how I found him?
Maybe Twitter, but I maybe not Twitter.
He kept sending me memes on Twitter, and they were fire memes, and I kept posting them. And then eventually he kept doing it. And then so I was like, hey man, who are you? He told me, and I was like, why do you keep sending these? He's like, because they're cool. And I was like, I got an idea. Why don't we get on a call and talk about it? That's literally how I found him. Was he kept DMing me fire memes, and now he works with me.
Yeah, I think some people that helped me out, they started working with me because they helped me out with memes. They sent me memes, or they give me memes, and I'm like, I think memes are incredibly underrated right now. We're seeing that with Elon Musk. It's just leveraging these memes to the moon right now. And the guy posts a meme and they're like, oh, it's the greatest fucking thing I've ever seen. And you're like, so I feel like I got this theory just because I spend way too much time on Twitter that the people that are the big influencers on Twitter right now are eventually going to break into the mainstream and be like the world influencers. And I feel like a guy like Elon Musk, he got known for great products, but he's also using Twitter brilliantly. Even Chamath as well too. Chamath, you got Barstool, Dave Portnoy, yourself as well too. I think that people really underrate how powerful Twitter is in terms of getting attention, building audience, building brand, just getting your team of people that support you and that are going to ride with you, and you can kind of build off of that.
I mean, look, it's very clear that the meme is the message at this point, right? If you got a good meme, it can go far. And so if the meme is the message, then the meme lords are kind of running the kingdom, right? And I think that what you have to do is you've got to find a balance, right? Every single one of those people that you mentioned, in terms of Elon Musk, Chamath, Dave, like all these folks, they actually have a lot of substance behind them, right? They're very, very good, and they've been very successful doing the thing that they're doing. What they then are able to do is to show kind of the human side of them. So whether that's them joking around, that's them, just absolutely flaming somebody on Twitter because they're being an idiot, or whatever it is, that ends up being a really valuable thing to show, look, I'm a smart, intelligent, kind of hardworking, successful business person or investor, but also don't get it twisted, I will come for your neck on the internet, right? Is kind of, I think people on the internet like appreciate the context switching and the ability to kind of be real and raw and authentic, but also to be successful in kind of your chosen career or industry. And so I think that's what you're seeing is just the people who are actually themselves, the people who you would enjoy like going getting a beer with, are doing well on the internet. And frankly, that's how I think it should be.
Well, we're going to talk some Bitcoin in a second, guys. See people in the chat. What's going on? My buddy Joe Novella. What's up, Big J? He was really excited about this. He said this is an insane duo right here. First of many collaborations between you two, I hope. Thank you, Big J. A lot of people out there really enjoying it. Appreciate all the comments, guys. And listen, man, it's good to be back doing the podcast. It's been a long time. Matt Gibson, $9.99 donation. Welcome to the Poker Life podcast, Mr. Pompliano. Do you know much about poker, Pomp? Are you familiar with Poker World at all, or anyone in poker? I see you talk with my guy Bill Perkins a little bit on Twitter, kind of go back and forth a little bit, but are you familiar with the poker world at all, or any sort of how it works?
So not the real poker world, right? My best experience with poker is I used to play with friends in high school and into college, and my claim to fame is I would basically fuck with everybody, and I would just tell them my cards while I was playing. And so, every once in a while you lie, but for the most part you tell it. I'd flip cards over after every hand and kind of prove that I wasn't lying. And my friends hated it, right? Because they're all so used to kind of playing more traditional poker. And so it was just a way to like kind of screw with people while we were playing. But if I sat down at a real table with anybody who actually knew what they were doing, I would just very quickly probably hand them all of my money. So that's about the extent of my knowledge.
Yeah, I mean, the thing about poker is that if you play with the right people, you can be a winner in the game. So if you go to your game and you find 8 people that literally don't know what they're doing, you might be the best player in the game. And if that's the only game you play, then you're going to be a massive winner. And that's the idea of market selection or game selection or kind of, you know what I'm saying? Like you can kind of take that from poker and put it into other businesses too. I've
had a couple of folks who play poker come on the podcast, and that seems to be a very important part of being successful at poker is the table selection. And I've had folks come on and basically explain, look, sometimes you sit down, you think you're going to play for 8 hours online, you get 30 minutes in and you're like, today's not my day. You got to have the kind of emotional discipline and kind of the self-awareness to just get up, right? And just say, hey, look, if I keep playing for another 7.5 hours, I'm gonna lose a lot of money. And then there's other times where, in the physical casinos, you got to be able to understand what table you're playing at, and if there's a better opportunity somewhere else. So it's fascinating to me because it's very similar to investing, right? It's like the market you select. If you'd been long crypto over the last couple of years, you look like a genius, right? Well, you didn't actually have to be a genius. You just had to have the tailwind picking the right market, and you could have closed your eyes and thrown a dart and probably made money. And so I think that it's very similar, aspects in both poker and investing. It's probably why a lot of poker people like investing, right?
That's actually something I say because I see a lot of people I know that got into crypto that had some success and they sort of act like they're this fucking expert investor. I go, well, I mean, buddy, like, listen, are you really that good investor, right? Like, what'd you do really right here? And I think that's maybe from the outside looking into the investing world. And as I've been learning more about being an investor, that's my big takeaway was like, there's a lot of things from poker that can apply to investing too. And I'm sort of trying to figure out maybe what those things are. My camera is just freaking out, having like a panic attack right now. What the hell my camera's doing? Calm down, camera here. But let's talk about the Bitcoin and because I know a lot of people out there, that's what they mainly know you for. You're going out there, you're talking about decentralized markets, decentralized banking, down with the Federal Reserve, down with the fiat currency. Are you worried about the Federal Reserve people coming after you here, by the way? Because you're sort of one of the anti-Federal Reserve people. Do you ever, I feel like it's always a worry, right? Do you ever get worried, or people talk to you and say, hey, like you're pushing an agenda that might get you in some trouble or anything like that?
No, look, I'm not an anti-Federal Reserve guy. I think that I'm more of like an anti-interventionist, right? Which is basically, look, the Federal Reserve and the system that we have is the system we have. Like, I'm not a anarchist or believe that like the system has to fail for Bitcoin to succeed. I actually think the exact opposite is right. You're going to get coexistence. You're going to get all these currencies are going to be digitized. So you have a digital dollar, a euro, an RMB, you'll have Bitcoin, you'll have private currencies like Libra from Facebook and many others. But I think that the part that people, kind of forget is just, we live in a world right now where every time anything bad happens, meaning that markets turn over or there's any sort of reversion to the mean, all of a sudden elected officials and central bankers around the world run into the market to try to like solve the problem. And I forget who says this, but one of my favorite things is, the central bank trying to solve market downturns is like a fireman trying to shut off a fire or to stop a fire that they started. Right. It's basically like if you lit the house on fire and then you run in to try to put the fire out, that doesn't make you a hero. That just means you're wasteful. Right. And so it's kind of a similar thing, which is if we stopped intervening in the markets and just allowed the free market to play out. Right. There's no world where we should go 10, 12, 14 years without a true market correction, right? If you look even in last March, right, how many zombie businesses are being just propped up in the markets because we're basically giving them free money? Well, in a market downturn, the bad businesses are supposed to go away. The resources get reallocated to good businesses. Talent gets reallocated. And like, that's how you get a stronger and stronger market. But we keep short circuiting it. We don't want to have these market downturns. It makes sense if you're an economic actor and trying to optimize for the mitigation of short-term pain, makes a ton of sense. But over a long period of time, you're just making the problem worse, right? And if you go back, we were printing, hundreds of billions of dollars in 2008. Now we're printing trillions. Well, guess what happens next time? We're going to be printing 10 plus trillion dollars, right? Like it's just, if you really zoom out and you look at it, it's just like, okay, there's two worlds that are happening in parallel. One is an unsustainable world. We're going to keep doing the same thing over and over and over again and making the problem worse and worse. At the same time, we're just accelerating to run off a cliff, right? And I don't know where the cliff is. Like that's the other part. Like some people are predicting the demise of the dollar, the U.S. banking system. Like I don't know if all that's going to happen, right? Frankly, that's hard for me to understand. But like what I do know is you can't keep intervening in the market and printing as much money as you possibly want, especially when 20% of all U.S. dollars are created in the last 12 months right now. 20% of all dollars in circulation were created in the last 12 months. And so it's like, look, that's just not a good situation, right? And so we got to figure something else out. I've personally chosen just to opt out of that system in terms of I don't want to leave my wealth in cash. I put it in Bitcoin because I think it's a better protector of the purchasing power. And so everyone's got to make their own decision, but that's kind of the thought process. It's less, anti-Federal Reserve. Like, I don't care what they do. It's more so just people being smart and educated and thinking for themselves about how to protect their wealth and their purchasing power.
So it seems like one of the common things people ask about is what happens when the old folks in the U.S. government start figuring out what podcasts are and start figuring out what Bitcoin is and start figuring out what cryptocurrency is. And they're like, wait, maybe we should do something about this. So what happens at that point in time when, right? And you talk about, okay, well, they can't do anything about it and they can't shut it down and no one controls Bitcoin. But it seems to me like these guys will figure out something if they really wanted to figure out something. They seem pretty inventive when it comes to shutting things down. I mean, they shut down online poker back in 2011, and this is way different than online poker. But it makes me believe these guys have an idea to solve any problem when it comes to something like this.
Yeah, so I just debated this guy. It's going to come out, I think, let's say Tuesday. It's going to come out tomorrow, Wednesday, on Real Vision. And basically his position, he's kind of comes from the Wall Street world. And his position is exactly that. The U.S. government is eventually going to ban Bitcoin, right? And he flip-flops all the time between whether he's advocating for that or he's just making a market analysis that's going to happen. But basically his position is it's going to get banned. And what I continue to say is, if you look around the world, every country that's banned it, adoption has gone up, not down. So even if you ban it, you can't enforce the ban, right? It's kind of like jaywalking. It's illegal to jaywalk. I jaywalk all the time in New York City. Not because I'm trying to break the law, but it's just the most efficient path to walk across the street. And when I'm usually jaywalking, I'm jaywalking next to 20 other people, right? And so there's no enforcement of that, but that is a law on the books, is you're not supposed to do that, right? And so I think that the banning of cryptocurrencies, Bitcoin specifically, is exactly the same. And the reason is it is an open, decentralized protocol. So similar to the internet, an open, decentralized protocol means that everyone in the world is going to have access to it, right? And so what the argument for the US banning it is, in many cases, and what this guy Mike Green made was, well, we're going to allow other countries to do something that could in turn threaten the United States and the United States dominance. Well, of course, so did the internet. Like, hey, China has the internet. Iran has the internet. Venezuela has the internet, right? But we as the United States didn't say, like, you know what, we should not use the internet because those people have the internet. And if they have the internet, they may be able to weaken the United States. No, instead what we said is, look, we should go and we should embrace the internet. We should be the leaders in the internet, and we should accelerate kind of our position as the leader on a global stage by embracing this open, decentralized network. And so I think that that's what we're essentially getting with Bitcoin, right? Is, look, we can basically ban ownership, but what we're going to do is we're essentially going to sanction US citizens and cut them off from this like global financial system. It sounds pretty stupid to me, right? Instead, what we should do is we should embrace it, and we should use it to further our position of leadership on a global stage. Because whether we use it or not, these other countries are going to use it. And so I think that's the kind of resounding message is the conclusion is incorrect, but the thought process is right. Yes, other countries are going to use this. And yes, the United States could potentially be threatened by it. But if we embrace it, we can use it to our advantage, right? It's kind of like a bullet. A bullet's not good or bad. It just depends on who's shooting it at who, right? And then we all start to decide, like, oh, that bullet, you shouldn't shoot at that person. Well, like, okay, cool. But if the police show up and you're being robbed, all of a sudden everyone's cool with guns and bullets, right? It's only if the criminal has the gun and is shooting at people, then people think it's a bad thing. So I think that's the similar thing here is you have an inanimate object, which is a global, open, decentralized protocol, and we should embrace it rather than fight it.
So I guess your kind of goal with what you do for content and for I guess influencing people or investing is to sort of put this message out there and to further the belief that people have in crypto, or sort of like how do you think about in terms of what you're doing with your own content or with kind of your approach to things?
Look, I frankly think of my main focus is I take my capital and usually other investors' capital alongside me, and I invest it. And the best way to invest successfully and make a profit is to understand what's happening right now, and then to understand what the repercussions or impact of today is going to be tomorrow. And so you're trying to understand kind of what's happening today, and then how does that change the future world? And so what you want to do is you want to basically anticipate changes in markets, and whether that's individual assets or kind of more macro markets. And so I, unlike other people, just decided one day to start doing that in public. And it wasn't some like big strategic thing.
I get it.
I started just talking to people on the podcast, whatever. And so I'm wrong all the time, but I'm comfortable being wrong in public. Whereas I think a lot of people, especially in the finance world, they don't want to release the information, right? Like they don't want people to know what their thesis is because there's a way to hide. If you're wrong, then no one ever knows, right? And to me, the journey is more fun than being right or wrong at the end. Now I'm going to be right, but the journey's the fun part, right?
Yeah, man. I mean, listen, these people in finance, they seem real egotistical and real like full of themselves when it comes to their achievements in the world, their place in the world. Like they're like, I made money, I'm a genius. It's like, all right, buddy, you didn't, you're not really, right? So these guys, when I see them on Twitter, there's so many differencing of opinions. And I know a lot of these smart former poker players who now are into crypto, and all these guys think they're right about everything, right? That's sort of what makes this a great thing. So if they don't agree with you, they're going to say, you know what the fuck you're talking about. You look at them, you say, you know what the fuck you're talking about, right? So it's like this, and that's kind of makes it fun to me, right? It's like, and I get what you're saying. You're passionate about it. You want to talk about it. You start sharing it. People start showing up. You're like, well, fuck, all right, I'm going to keep talking about it, right? Like, this is how I believe. And sure, not everybody's going to kind of rock with that or agree, or they're going to be on my side and they're going to have disagreements, but that's the fun part of it, seems like, for you, is those disagreements are pretty fun for you to deal with.
it's entertainment, right? I've said a bunch of times before, and there's a couple of other folks, actually a guy who works with Matt Marlinsky, I think talks about this too, which is like, basically everything is just the WWF. Like if you think of wrestling, right, there's all kinds of different things. So if I tell you right now, like who's the fan favorite on Twitter, we could all come up with names, right? If I tell you who's the enemy, right, or who's kind of the adversary, come up with names. Who's the tag team, wrestling group, right? We could tell you who that is. Like who's the big fat slow slob, right? Like we could tell you who the equivalent intellectually is of that. Who's the one who's going to jump up on the top rope and do a backflip before they, clothesline something? Like you have all these things. And then you've got like the performance, which is the actual like wrestling, but then you got all the shit talking in advance. And so what I think is so fascinating about Twitter is half the people on there are there for the entertainment.
Right.
Like if look at Chamath, right? Chamath's a great example. You're telling me Chamath's not having a blast right now? Dave Portnoy, he's not having a blast right now. You may not agree with everything they say. You may think that they're egotistical. You may think that they're assholes. You may even think that they're smart. You may think that they're compassionate. You may think they're right or wrong based on investing, whatever. But at the end of the day, when I look at people like Elon, Chamath, Dave, and a whole bunch of other people that are either controversial or well-known, most of them are having a lot of fun on the internet, right? I tweeted the other day and I said, if you're not having fun on the internet right now during all the GameStop and Robinhood stuff, I feel bad for you because I had a blast. Like last week might have been one of my favorite weeks on the internet because it was just the internet versus the world, and the internet's undefeated. So like, let's go,
bro. Listen, I was telling me and my ex-girlfriend we're following the news. We're like, all right, what are we gonna fire on here, right? Me and my friends are in the group chat. We're like, they're all about this Voyager. They love Voyager. They're all about fucking Voyager. They're pumping. They're the U of Voyager right now. They're just pumping this shit to the fucking moon. We were watching the CNBC show. I've never really watched CNBC before. I see some clips from Chamath on Twitter. You post some stuff I say in my timeline, basically just from you two. That's it. And you're on there, and then they have the CEO of the Robinhood on there. I'm like, oh my God, this is Gary V's on there. I was like, man, how did Pomp get it? How do you get in the mix with the Robinhood CEO when it's the biggest story that's happening in the world? What do they call you? And they're like, yo, you want to come on and you're on there like 3 minutes. What do they say? You want to come on 3 minutes and talk about how Bitcoin's the future? Like what's that process like for you to get on that show?
Yeah, I actually don't remember the first time I went on, but the whole thing about television in general, and CNBC is this is definitely true, and as others, is basically what they're looking for is they're looking for a diversity of opinions. They're looking for folks who, kind of can argue one side, and they go find folks who can argue the other side. But I think the key part is, and I didn't really understand this at first, it's like, you also can't say crazy shit either, right? So like if I went on there and I was like, Bitcoin's going to take down the US financial system, that'd probably be the last time I was on CNBC right, for a while. And so it's like, there's an element of like, you want to say what you believe, but also you got to understand the kind of medium that you're saying it through and kind of who the audience is and all that. But I do think that a lot of the platforms on television and otherwise have realized there is a massive, heavily engaged audience around Bitcoin and crypto. And so if they can bring on, not just me, I mean, there's a lot of people, right? Everyone, Michael Saylor, Meltome, there's just a whole bunch of people that they'll bring on to the show now. And they know that those clips will go viral on Twitter afterwards. I see. Yeah, they know that people will tune in live, right? And so again, they do a great job, I think, in producing the shows. But they've got a business to run, right? And so what do you need? You need eyeballs to pay attention to. You need advertisers that want to get in front of those eyeballs, right? And so you're incentivized to bring a diversity of opinions that people want to tune into and learn from. And, frankly, I wouldn't want the job to go find all the diversity of opinions and manage all these people and get them all to show up on time when, where they're supposed to be, all of that. So I think they do a great job, but it's just, it's very different, right? When you're on television versus you and I sitting here talking about on YouTube with your camera is like hemorrhaging. I know what the fuck's happening here. I know.
My camera's freaking out. I've never done this before. It's just freaking out. It's having a mind of its own. I'm dealing with it. I'm watching it. We're professionals around here.
You're doing great. Like you're just motoring right through it as if it's not happening. You look like you're like from the 1970s, like the extra screwed up.
It's like, yeah, I know people are like, is this just me? Is it my screen? No, it's my camera. I don't know what's happened to this thing. We've done live streams 3 times a week for the past 2.5 months. We haven't dealt with the glitching camera quite yet, but it is what it is, man. But yeah, it makes sense what you're saying about the CNBC, and they look for the clips. And even though I feel like that anchor, he might not enjoy it when Chamath goes on there and kind of, maybe makes him look a little silly, and then everyone on Twitter is making fun of him, whatever. But I'm sure CNBC enjoys that too. So,
but here's what I always try to remember. I create a lot of content, and I've probably said some pretty stupid stuff along the way, just because, it's in the moment. You say something, then you think about it later, and you're like, you know what, maybe I actually think like a variation of that, or I didn't fully think through it, or whatever. I don't have to do that all day long in front of a national audience. Yeah, sure, the podcast is popular or whatever, but like, if I ever said something really crazy and was like, oh, I really disagree with that, like, we could always edit it if we wanted to. Now, the folks who edit the podcast, they're not going to be very happy if every podcast episode, I'm like, hey, can we edit out, this moment, right? But I think that it's just different when it's live television, because there's a different element to it than just, kind of pre-recorded, edited content.
Right.
So, again, I just tend to think that if you spend long enough on television as an anchor, you're going to say something at some point that people on the internet will find the problem with. And so you just kind of got to chalk it up and say, hey, look, I'm going to keep doing my job, and everyone chill out.
Yeah. I think it's a good way to go upon doing it. I mean, it seems like you have to have a good mindset about creating content, because you're putting so much out there. You're putting so many thoughts in there that people are very passionate about arguing with as well too. So you're sort of getting pushback from here on a constant basis. So I imagine you must embrace that confrontation. You just said you were debating a guy the other day about sort of his beliefs as well too. So it seems like you must really enjoy that confrontation.
This is what people get the most mad about. Not serious stuff. I've had people come on the podcast and talk about wildly controversial stuff, and people won't even pay attention. But then I'll say something like, people who pour the milk in their bowl before they pour the cereal are serial killers. and it's literally like I attacked like half the population. I'm like, wait a minute. First of all, that's wild that you pour the milk in before you pour the cereal. But second of all, out of all the controversial stuff we talked about on the podcast, that's what you guys are worried about. So it's just, you just got to remember, it's the internet, right? And people are going to get all worked up about all kinds of crazy stuff. And it's fun. You just keep going.
People in the chat, guys, appreciate all the comments today. Skip Trade says, what's up? Poppy back at shortly after Epic stream last night. We are back. Listen, man, we had to bring the podcast back, man. I'm excited to get Pomp on here. Mike Craig says, hey, Joey, what's up, Mike? What's happening? Bunch of other people out there as well. I see a bunch of people say they like your content and they like my content. So I imagine for them it's kind of like a mind fuck right now. They're like, I wouldn't have seen these two guys get together for any sort of collaborative effort on anything right now. So Gigi says, hell yeah, 2 of my favorite YouTube collaborating. Well, there we go, man. Appreciate you guys very, very much out there. And so on Twitter, right, you got your brother out there. Shout out to Joe Pompliano, right? I started following him when he was just starting, and he started whipping out these threads. And now there's mixed reactions to the threads, right? There are some people are like, I love the threads. Other people are like, all right, can we stop with these fucking threads already? I get people but I love the threads personally. I find them very informative. You kind of whip them out occasionally too. So what's up with the relationship between you and your brother? And now he's building up this newsletter. He's building up a big audience on there. He's like the sports business guy at Twitter, man. He's killing it out there.
So, well, the relationship is he's my brother, so we share the same mother and father. Now, I've got 4 younger brothers. He is the second youngest of the 5 boys, and he was working at a big bank. And one day he just called me. And he goes, "Yo, I'm gonna send you a link." He sent me to Substack, and he was like, "I want to do this." And they previously worked for a summer at Octagon, and basically the thought process as we kind of talked through it was like, look. Nobody was covering kind of the business behind sports in a new, unique, kind of valuable way. And so we thought that there was an opportunity there. My key piece of advice to him or challenge to him basically was like, look, if you do this, you just got to be consistent. And so if you decide you're going to write every day, you better write every day. I don't want you to write one day and then skip 3 days, or it'll never work, right? Mm-hmm. So it's like, if you're going to do it every day and just be consistent with it. And the thread I actually think he came up with the idea for taking the news. I'm pretty sure it was him who came up with the idea of taking the newsletter, what he wrote that day, and then like tweeting it out that night. And the whole idea was to drive more subscribers to the newsletter, right? So he put the link at the bottom or whatever. And then the infamous time for a thread, he sent me in an email for the first time, right? And was like, here's the thread. And I told him, I was like, put time for a thread with the 3 fingers pointing down. And I had used it in the past, and I didn't create that. Like I saw somebody else, I forget who it was, but I saw somebody else on Twitter do it. And I was like, oh, that's smart. Like, go get people to read, whatever. And so I just sent it to him as an offhand, hey, we should do this. It'll get people to read it. By the end of the first week, we knew people were going to latch onto the time for a thread because people were already tweeting like, basically, shut the fuck up with the time for a thread. And so that's where we were like, all right, like we're on to something here. And so he started creating it. And I always tell people like, I don't want to say some names because I don't know if they'd be cool with us saying it, but the first like week or two, I mean, we were savages in DMs. Like literally he would write the thread and of course I would retweet it. And then I was sending it to every person I possibly can, being like, yo, retweet this, retweet this, retweet this. And people in business basically were just like kick rocks. I know nothing about sports. I'm not doing this. So like, it was like a very low hit rate. But then I realized that we could start basically harassing people in sports. So we were DMing it to like professional athletes, reporters. And these people were like, oh, this is a cool thread. They would retweet it. And so there was a couple that went like super viral and everyone was like, oh, that happened because Joe's brother has a big audience. Like, yeah, I had 300, 400,000 followers, whatever it was. But like, he was getting more engagement than I was getting, right? I mean, he had tweets that were going viral, getting 25,000 favorites and stuff. And so I was like, hey, by the way, if I could do that for myself, I wouldn't be helping him, right? Like this was because it was high quality content. It was consistent. Other people were retweeting it. And we started to have fun with it. And then it kind of just took on a life of its own. Like now, people just see time for a thread. Like people literally just be like, here's an idea, time for a thread. And then the next tweet is just like, basically like, I'm not that stupid. I won't do threads, right? Or whatever. So it's like, they're just having fun.
That's how I look at Twitter too. I try to have a good time with it and people take me way too seriously on Twitter. I'm usually just joking around about most things I say. And it seems like also you got your wife on there as well too. Right. So she's doing content. She's doing some really good stuff called the Profile, where she's breaking down in depth these like athletes, entertainers, business people. And I've seen a couple of those really do well. And you guys have the show that you guys do on your YouTube channel. So it seems like she's also building up something really nice for herself in the content space too.
Here's a fun fact for you. When I met Paulina in 2016, December 2016, she had more Twitter followers than me. And, now maybe not so much, but so she was a reporter at Fortune for 5 years. She used to cover all the tech and venture capital stuff. She wrote this newsletter called Term Sheet, quit last year. She'd been working on the Profile as kind of like a side thing for, I think, 2 or 3 years. And then when she left and started kind of really focusing on it, it exploded. And so, it's kind of unique because, obviously one of her interests is studying successful people and companies. So she gets to do that all day. My brother, one of his interests is sports. He gets to do that all day. Obviously for me, it's more like business and finance stuff, right? I get to do that all day, investing, all that. And then I think that one of the really interesting things is I've got other brothers. One of them is actually on Twitter. He has an absolute fire Twitter account. It's done pseudonymously.
Oh no!
At some point,
a third Pomp Bro's coming.
At some point, he will do it under his own name, but he may be the best at Twitter out of all of us. And nobody knows who he is. He's just got this stupid account, and so it's hysterical because he'll tweet stuff, and then like my brother and I will like DM it to a little group chat we have, and just we'll lose it because he's so funny. He always finds like the most obscure stuff. So we joke, he's the most interesting dude on the internet. He just hasn't, revealed himself yet. So he's coming at some point when we can convince him to do it.
Yeah, I saw they were asking for a third. They said, do you got a third Pomp Bro to cover this genre? I was like, maybe they do got a third bro, right? I was kind of doing some research. I saw
5 of us.
Yeah, I'd say 5 of you guys. I mean, maybe that's a spot. They can already, it's like LeBron James' son, It's like, we already know the guy's going to put up good threads, right? I love it, man. I mean, listen, I don't get to meet too many people that like Twitter as much as I like Twitter. I spend way too much time on there. I just love tweeting out all a bunch of things and talking to people and having that engagement. And yeah, man, I think it's a fucking blast. It's just a lot of fun. So it seems like you kind of do the same thing with that, and you've also been able to use that as a big, I guess, springboard to build an audience. And now you're expanding with the podcast. You've been that for a long time too. It seemed like you changed the name of the podcast from what was it, Off the Chain before, and now you just call it Pomp Podcast.
Yeah, I changed the name mainly because I ran into two things. One, I wanted to talk about other things than just crypto stuff. And then two was there was a couple of guests who were like, dude, I would love to come on, but like, I don't know anything about crypto. And so it was more so just me focusing and like, when I first started, I think that the name Off the Chain was like an offhand comment I made. And like, remember when you were young, I don't know, you're probably about my age, right? Where like, you'd be like, oh man, that's off the chain. Like you would talk, like it had nothing to do with crypto blockchain. Like this shit wasn't even invented. You used to be like, oh, that's off the chain, right? And so for whatever reason, I was like, that's funny. Like, people think it's about crypto, but I'm actually talking about like, oh, Pomp's off the chain. And then at some point I was like, all right, I probably should like not be so ridiculous and try to be a little bit more serious. So we changed the name of the newsletter, changed the name of the podcast, and it was probably a pretty good decision to do. But that's where really that happened.
And then now you're running the operation. You're down in Miami. The Miami mayor. I even messaged Miami. Listen, the Miami mayor was going on a psychotic spree on Twitter. I sent him a message. I go, listen, poker's illegal technically, so I can't really do anything online poker related in your city. But when I can, I'm coming to Miami, right? And he was like, okay, let me know if you need anything else. I'm like, all right, this guy's amazing. So it seems like you and the Miami mayor taking photos on Twitter. You're doing like you're working for the government with like a Bitcoin, like a fucking. You're giving talks. I don't know what's happening. What's going on with you in Miami? What's up with you and the Miami mayor? And are you the official Bitcoin government representative for Miami?
So I'm in Miami. I am very impressed with the speed, momentum, and density of just founders and investors who've been moving here. As of right now, I will be here for a while. I will kind of wait to reevaluate maybe sometime around May in terms of what will we do full time. But so far, we like it here. We have a place here. We're working here, and I don't think that'll change. When it comes to Bitcoin and the mayor, so Plan and I went and had some coffee with him or whatever. And when we were there, he asked me. He said, look, if you were me, like, what would you do? And I said, you really want me to tell you, or you want me to give you some, basically bullshit kind of, bureaucratic answer? And he was like, no, tell me for real. And I said, if I was you, what I would do is I would let everyone know you were open for innovators, right? I would basically say, if you're building anything of value, come here. Whether you're an investor, a founder, whatever you want to work on, come here. And by the way, the crypto and Bitcoin industry is going to end up being really big. And so I want to serve as the hub for that in the United States. And so I told him, I said, the number one way you could do that is to take 1% of Miami's treasury of their reserves and put it in Bitcoin. And I said, and you will have every single person in this country who will realize Miami is going to take this seriously, and then they're going to run for it. And he basically looked at me and he said, I like that idea. I'm going to go see if I can figure out how to do that. I was like, this dude's the real deal, man. Right. Like he to take that. And then the thing he didn't get enough credit for, other than on Twitter, is he took the Bitcoin white paper and he put it on the Miami government website.
Yeah, right. I saw that.
The first municipal government to basically post it. And, it takes a lot of kind of innovative thinking and kind of speed and decisiveness to do stuff like that. But he's working. And so I think that's what people want. They want people to basically say, look, you come here, I'm going to work for you. I'm going to help try to do my best to make you successful. And I think he's the perfect embodiment of what people want in a political candidate or a political elected official. And so, more power to him, and I hope he keeps going.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think he's going to burn out at Twitter if he's doing it all himself. If he's have all these new meetings, he's going to be involved with these new founders, and I think he said he was a lawyer as well too. So the guy's clearly busy down there. He's working pretty hard. I'm going to follow his progress. Good luck to him. But you said you got to go at 12:10, right? Or 5 minutes?
Yeah, I got another 5 minutes or so.
All right, cool. So we'll. Listen, I got a million questions, buddy. I've been enjoying following the journey. Right? Like I said, I like to follow the other people that are excited, that are ready to get after it, that are fired up, that are putting up positivity each day. You know what I'm saying? Even when things are a little bit down, you stay strong. You know what I'm saying? I enjoy kind of being around that and, following that. I think a lot of people out there enjoy that as well.
Putting a deposit down to talk shit later. That's what I was doing in 2018 and 2019 when Bitcoin and crypto was down in the bear market. I was just putting down deposits so that now when it's up at, forget $35,000, I can basically tell all those idiots who said it was going to zero, I told you so. Now, part of that is pure entertainment. Part of it's because some of those people are actually stupid. But I think that as this thing continues, there's a lot of folks who just, it just takes time, right? You got to get educated. You got to go down the rabbit hole. And so as much as I like to kind of give people a hard time and talk shit and all that, I do think it's important that we educate people, that we're very receptive when somebody says, hey, look, I used to not believe in this. I've taken some time though. Now it's interesting to me. Those are the exact people that we should be kind to and kind of welcome with open arms. So it's fun to see people starting to do that now.
Yeah, it's pretty much where I am now, Pomp, is that I really didn't pay attention to even being like really financially educated, or I was always just kind of focused on the game of poker, my content, my sort of like living in my world, and tried to stay really focused on that game. And then I started learning about the finance game and the investing game, and I was like, oh my God, this is really interesting. This is fascinating stuff. So learning about Bitcoin, kind of watching your content and watching a bunch of other people on Twitter and talking to my other friends. And I feel like I'm entering in that rabbit hole of sort of starting to understand what exactly the asset business is and how investing works and how to think about currency and time and attention and all these different kind of things like that. So it's you said you talked about on YouTube or on Twitter that you wanted to start potentially a financial education YouTube channel as well for just kind of helping people out, helping them learn.
I'm going to do it at some point. I just got to frankly find the time. But my goal would be when we launch this to go from 0 to 1 million subscribers to see how quick we can do that. And really the idea is just like, there's all kinds of people on the internet who are always spreading all kinds of crazy ideas that frankly are, misinformed might be the nice way to put it. And so if you just kind of take a purist view and you say, look, I'm going to create a place where when somebody asks me questions about money or finance or investing or whatever, I just say, look, go to this one URL and pretty much all the information that's in my head, I've tried to download and put here, and we'll see how it works. But I like the challenge of trying to go from 0 to 1 million subscribers. And so, let's see what happens.
I think if you do it right, it's going to crush. Because kind of strategy you use now is all long form strat. You sort of like do the long form pods, mix in with the 12-minute clips, with the lunch money clips. And if you just, none of those are necessarily optimized for YouTube specifically. So if you start making financial education videos and collaborating with people and then you optimize it for YouTube with the titles and thumbnails, plus the way you start your videos, like it's going to absolutely crush, because you talk about having the audiences from different platforms to kind of bring over there. There's just so many different kind of campaigns and circular things you can do to bring the audience all to see whatever that main piece of content, event style video you have. And I mean, you're with the fire and energy. That's what they like on YouTube. They want some passion. They want some excitement. So if you can give it to them and they're also making some money from what you're saying, recipe for success. So last question from my man, Scott Grease. Scott, you sent me a lot of questions on Twitter for Pomp. And one, I thank you as always. Two, it would have been a long time to ask him a lot of those questions. They had been long answers. So, but I appreciate that. He has one here. He says, if Pomp had 10,000 to invest today in crypto, what is the mix? All Bitcoin, mix of Bitcoin. I guess that's just, if you had 10,000 to invest, where might you allocate that, and how would you start doing about it or thinking about building up that bankroll?
Yeah, I mean, the question is so hard because it really comes down to what else are you invested in? What are your goals? What's your time horizon? All that kind of stuff. But for me, I'm just 100% Bitcoin, right? And my thought process essentially is, I think of it in a Venn diagram. On one side, you just have what is the thing that I have the most confidence in? And then what is the thing that I think will have really attractive returns, right? In terms of US dollar price appreciation. And when you bring those two things together, Bitcoin is the thing that sits in the middle, right? It's the thing that I've got the absolute highest conviction in, and it's the thing that will still provide really, really attractive returns. Are there things that may appreciate more? Sure, maybe. Are there things that maybe I don't have as much conviction in? Of course. But it's just like when you put those two things overlaid on each other, Bitcoin kind of stands above everything else. And so for me, that's kind of what I focused on, and that's really kind of how I've thought about the portfolio construction.
Yeah, makes sense. Bitcoin all in. No game, no Ethereum, no anything else. Bitcoin. I like that a lot, man. And we'll wrap it up on this. You have to give the people one piece of, usually like one piece of poker advice, one piece of life advice. Do you have some sort of life advice you might be able to give the people that you live by that helps you get through your days and get through your days feeling good about what you got done?
No fucking fear. That's it. Fear is a construct of your mind. Get that shit out of there and you'll do anything.
Mm-hmm. Amen, man. Let's wrap it up on that. Guys in the chat, appreciate you guys for tuning in. If you watched on YouTube, hope you guys enjoyed. It's on iTunes as well, too. If you search my name on iTunes, Pomp, it's great to have you on, man. Great to get to kind of meet you, get to learn more about you, and hopefully the people that tuned in enjoy as well. If you want to find Pomp, his YouTube link is in the description below. You can search him on Twitter or on the podcast. Search for Pomp. You'll find him up there. He puts out content. The guy is a goddamn machine when it comes to podcasts. He's having conversations every single day. He takes a very, I love the strat. It's awesome, man. And it's nice to meet you, buddy. I look forward to following along with the journey, and I'm sure we'll be in touch again. Maybe we do this again, and I'll get some more questions out of you.